A huge air incident, again involving Air India, has just been averted. But it has left many injured and the cause here is shocking. The pilot was under influence. In this context, bigger question arises. Did DGCA does not regulate what a pilot is consuming? If it does, what are the rules, what are the guidelines, and how DGCA is probably addressing the bigger problem, which is the number of pilots. Hello everyone, welcome to Vajiram and Ravi's Flash News. My name is Shubhangi Singh, and in today's session we are going to understand that when we are looking at the Phuket Delhi Air India incident, the confirmation that the pilot was under influence is one part of it. It raises bigger questions about regulation, it raises bigger questions about air flight safety and many more. So today we will be focusing on all of this. So when we are looking at this incident, what we saw that when we are looking at the Phuket Delhi Air India flight, which was AI 2379, it all of a sudden experienced loss of flight. And when we are understanding loss of flight or loss of altitude, what basically happens, let's just say the plane is traveling at this altitude and all of a sudden, because of certain whatever probable causes, there is immediate drop in the altitude. Now this happened, and when we are looking at this particular situation is termed as a negative G situation. So this flight briefly entered this situation, and because of this incident, more than 20 passengers and 4 cabin crew, they were injured. Now amidst the investigation and everything, it was found that the pilot in command, he was under the influence of the drugs, and in this context, the bigger question here, and in this incident, it was co-pilot who probably saved the day because he had to take the control of the given situation. As of now, the investigation has not been concluded. We still are looking into other technical factors which could have led to the situation, but one part here has been confirmed. Now, this one part which has been confirmed is raising multiple questions that when we are looking into in-flight safety, how important is the pilot? Of course, immensely, but can regulation be put on what he is consuming? If yes, how it is tested? Does DGCA has any regulation around it, and more? So in this context, the first thing we have to establish that whatever the pilot is consuming is of great importance in this context, especially and clearly because of the fact the pilot's safety is not just about one individual, it is a public safety issue because pilot is responsible for whole of the airplane. That means we are talking about 300 to 400 lives, and if this person's fitness is not of optimum level, then we are compromising the lives of these many people. So it is directly a public safety issue. It cannot be something that can be taken as a individual right, individual choice at all. Now when we are looking at such massive consequences, not just people on the flight but the on-ground staff, the cabin crew and more, we have to clearly understand one simple thing here. When we are straight up talking about the psychoactive substances, drugs, in this context, it can definitely impair the ability in terms of reaction time, decision making, situational awareness, coordination, and that is a definite huge risk to the public safety. So in this context, this is at least something that if pilot is consuming, that is not just to be tested, it has to be regulated and prohibited as well. And that is why DGCA has proper regulation, and there is a process that DGCA has established for regulating the consumption when we are looking at pilots, and that is properly done through dope tests. When we are talking about dope tests, you have to understand that this is not just for the crew, it is also for the ATC officers, it is also for the other aviation personnel, and this regulation is applicable across. And all the substances such as cannabis, cocaine, opiates, they are tested in this dope test. Now when we are looking at the mechanism, the testing here is random. That means there is no defined time. So random samples, random ATC officers, random personnel, flight crew is gone for testing. Then non-negative screening takes place, and if there is a confirmatory laboratory test, then medical evaluation is also done. After the medical evaluation has taken place, then we look at the removal for safety sensitive issues, de-addiction or rehabilitation, and then there is also fitness certification that is given before joining is done. That means before flying again comes into the picture, there is proper testing. So in this context, you can clearly see that DGCA regulation is not only about reactive measures, it is also about how there can be detection, prevention, and also rehabilitation. But if we look at this whole process, you will understand that when we are looking at random testing, this does leave a loophole where there is a probability that some of the crew or pilots are missed out. And probably in this window only this incident or what happened with PIC, that is pilot in command of this Air India flight, this incident occurred. And DGCA is so strict about it that this whole mechanism is facilitated only for the first time. Second time, what we see that the license stands suspended, and the third time, as soon as it comes into the picture, the license is straight away cancelled. If at all the pilot in the random testing comes into the picture and he refuses, he is immediately removed from safety sensitive duties. So when we are looking at the framework of DGCA, this is properly in place. Director General of Civil Aviation, they know what they are doing, the framework has been set. It's just that this random testing left out a loophole, and that was the mistake that happened. So probably if tightening is required, it is here. Otherwise, the mechanism seems well in place. Now that when we have entered this zone of discussion where we are talking about how pilot is a very key important component when we are talking about the safety of the flight and the people in there, we also have to understand that this consumption is not the only problem. Another big problem and rather a neglected one from DGCA happens to be fatigue. Because when we are looking at it, we have to understand that fatigue is also a clear safety hazard, but it is overlooked. Now the question is why it is overlooked? The answer will be very clear here. This only happens in a situation. Why 10 people are being overworked? Because 12 people are not available to work. If the work is supposed to be done by 12, then we need 12 people. If 12 people are not available, then 10 would have to do more than their capacity. And that is where fatigue does come into the picture. And that is why, if you remember last December when DGCA tightened the rules, especially because of fatigue as a standard, the rosters were changed and the indigo crisis happened in our country. That showed that we are running continuously in a uptight situation, and the moment DGCA tightens the rule further, the pilot roster collapses because we are running less in terms of pilot. Because when we are looking at fatigue, it is also a safety hazard. You have to understand that it is not fatigue in isolation that needs to be understood. You have to understand that how fatigue directly impacts vigilance. Vigilance will impact reaction. Reaction will impact memory, decision making, and this will also impact communication. That is why fatigue is something that is overlooked, but it is absolutely important. And that is why DGCA has proper understanding of this, and there are regulations for ensuring that flight duty time limitations are also placed. So as to ensure that the flight time, the flight duty period of the pilot, the duty period and the rest period, all of this is managed before the rosters of the flying companies is decided. That means how much the pilot will be in air, how much he will be resting, all of that is regulated by DGCA properly. Because when we are looking at this, this is something as big as regulation of consumption. Because the risks that run are cumulative. In this context, you have to understand that it is not just about if the pilot is going for a flight tonight, if he slept enough or not. It is about how long he has been working like this. What about the circadian rhythm? What about his health, mental workload that has been created? And all of this is very important. That is why when DGCA tightened the rules last December, we saw indigo crisis fold in our country. Because DGCA brought in tighter crew test requirements, and that created cancellations because there were not enough number of pilots. Now this points us to another bigger problem specific to our country, where we are looking at the numbers of pilot that is also limited. Because when we are seeing the pilot to aircraft ratio, this is absolutely low as compared to the global standards, where ours stands somewhere around 14 and the global average is around 20. And in this context, globally airlines also maintain spare crew, 20 to 25% of that is also maintained. But for India, this is not something that we have seen. Because if we are looking between 2020 to 2024, 507,000 commercial pilot licenses were issued. But when we are looking at the projected requirement, that was of 7,000 pilots. Now, if the work of 7,000 pilots is done by 5,700, then of course they will be overloaded, they will be overworked. And when we are looking at ensuring that all of this is maintained for the roster, that is not possible. And that is why DGCA had to step back. DGCA had to lighten the rules so as to ensure the functionality, the operationality of flights do remain. And this is where, once we have talked about how human factors are important, regulations are in place, but still errors occur. We have seen errors such as Air India Express IX 812 flight, Mangalore 2010, be it the Hamilton Island crash that happened in Australia in 2002, or Colgan Air USA 2009. All these incidents which have taken lives, these were the ones which had a humane factor more prominent than the technical factor. So this stands as the conclusion of this session, that when we are looking at flight safety, it is not just about regulations, it is not just about the technical aspects, it is also about the humane aspects. And that is why in coming time, it becomes of great essence that we just not the technical things right, but also the human factors as well. We have to ensure that the impairment detection is stronger. Random testing will not suffice. We have to focus on impairment detection, and that needs to be stronger than before. We need proper, reliable confirmatory testing. We need to ensure effective random and post-incident testing, clear distinction between medication, detection and impairment, and also better fatigue management. When we are looking at the regulation in terms of flight duties, time liabilities, that is where flight operators as well as DGCA cannot be lenient. We have to focus on scientific roster design, which ensures the rest period, the workload is adequately managed. And this is where fatigue reporting needs to be of effective nature. Apart from that, when we are talking about the technical aspect, we also have to understand that the safety culture in cockpit needs to be enhanced. Co-pilots and also crew, they need to report abnormal behavior without hesitation. If anything is not right, pilot is not behaving the way they should, then that needs to be reported. Crew resource management, that means crew should be able to handle extreme situation and they should not be worried about hierarchy. And above all of this structure stands the regulatory oversight. When looking at DGCA, they need to monitor this more intensely, not just in form of paperwork, that if it is happening on paper, but if it is actually being implemented or not. Now, what are your thoughts on this? Let me know in the comment section. That was all from my side. I'll be leaving you here with a very direct conclusion, because when we are talking about aviation safety, it is amalgamation of multiple factors. We have to have technology, safe aircraft. Yes, we have to have the skill, but we also have to have a fit crew. We have to ensure fatigue management, medical surveillance, safety culture, and also independent aviation. Independent investigation. That is when aviation safety will directly fit into the picture. In the end, I am also leaving you here with a revision box so as to ensure that you have every information that you need regarding DGCA and also AAIB. And we have a prelims practice question for you in the end. Let me know the answer to this in the comment section. That was all from my side. Thank you so much.